If you just do it, it'll turn out okay. But the topic we're talking about today isn't that okay.
Yeah,
In the
pretty big
past
topic.
in the past 2 weeks alone that I know of at least, there's been 3 shootings in this country.
Yeah, I know that there was the one in Texas at the elementary school, but I didn't know that there was any other ones.
Well, right after that, there's one in the hospital.
There was one at a hospital.
Yeah, a few days
Where at?
later.
Where
I
at?
got I got to look it up again. Uh, in Oklahoma.
Huh? I I did not hear about that.
Yeah, it was June 2nd.
And how many people died?
About
That's news to me.
about four, and then himself too.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed about most of these shootings. Usually 99.9% of the time, the shooter always will shoot themselves at the very end. But the only exception is that wacko, like who did the movie theater shooting for The Dark Knight Rises. That's the only one that I can think of where the shooter didn't shoot themselves at the end. And I can probably imagine that why that the shooters usually shoot themselves, right?
So they don't have to. So they don't have to face justice for what they did.
Yep, pretty much. And just to put it really bluntly, it's because that they want to be a coward. They don't want to face the consequences.
Oh, we have a comment here who
All this
says,
happens. Okay, first of all, Mark, you would have to prove that with actual studies, and and even if these shooters did, understand evolution as a fact, you know, correlation does not equal causation. And, maybe the shooters shot up those places not because they understand evolution or not. Maybe it's because they're just bad people. Have you ever stopped to think about that? That's a very common argument I've heard from young Earth creationists. I've even heard Ken Ham even try to argue that.
and apparently there was one in Philadelphia and Chattanooga, Tennessee recently too.
You know, that's the thing that irks me is that, Sandy Hook was 10 years ago now. Well, Sandy Hook will be 10 years ago in December, but you still get my point.
Yeah.
So after all that time, changes should have been done, in order to prevent Sandy Hook from happening again. Fast forward nearly 10 years later, and the Texas shooting happens at an elementary school.
Yeah, I know. I mean, school
all
shootings
over
are
again.
school shootings are bad enough. When you go out and kill kindergartners age kids, that's like a whole other level of craziness.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, all those young kids barely even began life.
I think this all really began. I was lucky myself personally. I think because I'm sure there was school shootings before this, but I think the big starting point of everyone knows about it was Columbine. And that happened a year after I graduated high school, so I missed out on all the security checks and all that stuff coming in because I just was a year behind that.
Yeah, and I was in kindergarten back when that happened, and so I actually wasn't even aware that Columbine even happened at that time because I was so young at that point. I feel like maybe my parents didn't tell me about it because I was so young. So yeah, but wasn't until years later was when I finally became aware of Columbine.
Yeah,
And,
but you probably might have heard of the effects of it maybe at your school maybe.
yep, definitely, yeah, definitely, 100%, and yeah, so And it's sad. It's because that, after all of that tragedy, trauma, and all that negativity, changes should have been done. But I feel like that part of the problem is, I know that gun laws, is extremely controversial, but
Yeah,
I feel like that because, people are just not willing to fix the issue, and and people are just wanting to argue about it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like
I
that maybe
think
that's why nothing has been done.
you know it's weird. I think it's like there's people on both extremes. Like say someone like says we should try to some like a moderate person says we should try to not to let crazy people and people with records have guns. And then now someone on the far right was saying they're trying to take my guns. I'll kill them all with my machine gun. And like no one trying to take your guns. It's like
Yeah, and so, with the household that I grew up in, you know, my father worked for the FBI from 1989 all the way until 2015. So because of that, there were very strict rules about guns in the household that I grew up in. I mean, both of my parents were so strict about guns. I remember in the 6th grade, I remember I borrowed a book from the library about guns. Soon as I brought that book home from school, my mom saw what I was reading and she was like, Eric, I want you to take that book back right now. And so, because of that, I lived a very sheltered life about guns. Now, granted, to play devil's advocate, I totally understand, that guns are not toys. And, and I understand that my parents didn't want me fooling around with guns. But, I don't see I also don't see the harm in educating yourself about guns.
mhm.
And, pretty much essentially, I mean, it's not rocket science, like that guns were created in the first place to kill. I mean, obviously. And so, it's an invention that we created, and because of that, we have to face the consequences for it.
Uh,
So,
Hey, so what's your opinion on the Second Amendment and how it applied back then and how it applies now?
correct me
Do
if
you
I'm
have
wrong.
one?
The Second Amendment is the freedom of bear arms, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so so I totally do agree that people should have something to defend themselves with because,
Yeah.
unfortunately, sometimes, sometimes there will come those times like where someone's going to be a little shithead and and somebody might try to hurt you or someone else. And so, do I personally believe that you should try to use words first to try to resolve it? Absolutely so. But unfortunately, sometimes words, words are just not going to cut it. And so, say, say unfortunately, if trying to resolve it verbally isn't going to do it, I mean, you got to do what you got to do to defend yourself. Now, do I personally think that some guns are really unnecessary to have in your household? Absolutely. Say does an average Joe need to have like a Tommy gun or a machine gun? No.
Yeah,
I
that's
I think having a rifle or a pistol is reasonable.
like maybe if you're like a collection, maybe if you're I don't know, maybe if you're a collection person, like a museum or something, or like if it's not full of stuff, like non-bullets, like this a display piece, up there, never to be used, maybe, but not fully armed, like I don't know if people seeing these memes all the time, I don't know if they mean it or not, says try to take my guns and I'll use my whatever, semi-automatic on you.
Yeah, and so, I personally don't have any guns in my apartment, but however, though, I do have weapons, to defend myself. I have a sword, I have a hammer.
And an attack dog.
Yeah, Simba, he's so vicious. But yeah, so you know, Now, the fact that I'm 29 years old, I'm old enough to make my own choices now. Uh, I actually have thought about, taking a gun course, just so that way I can know how to shoot a gun. And I thought about going to purchase, like at least a pistol from like a pawn shop. So yeah, so
Uh,
now,
Yeah, I know people. Some people want guns they can get no they can get off the black market or whatever they want. So sometimes sometimes like not getting preventing guns from people isn't that great a deal because people get them if they want to. But I remember in the '90s, I think it's gone now. But they made that something like a 5-day waiting period to get guns so you can have a background check. But I think someone got rid of that now.
yeah, and so correct me if I'm wrong. I think Texas is not as strict about guns as in some other places, but probably after the shooting, I'm not going to be surprised, is if Texas is going to change that. But yeah, and so you know, do I totally think that you should do a background check on people who want to buy a gun? Absolutely so, because you don't just want to give anybody a gun. So because that's pretty serious to give somebody a gun because say for argument's sakes, you wouldn't want to give O.J. Simpson a gun. You wouldn't want to give Adolf Hitler a gun. You want to give Charles Manson a gun, and yeah, so I totally have no problem, like with wanting to do a background check on somebody. And now, the only kind of people who I think should carry around a gun are cops. You know, I feel like that if a cop wants to carry around a gun, I think that's reasonable. No one's going to make a big deal about that. But if it's just an average Joe walking around the streets with a gun, people are going to be scared.
So what's your opinion on the people that say they should arm the teachers in the
Oh yeah,
schools?
so my mom actually is a teacher at the high school that I went to, and I remember when I brought that up to her about that idea, she said, "Okay, if they start doing that, I am no longer going to be a teacher." So I personally think that if they're going to give a teacher a gun, to play devil's advocate, I can totally understand that they want to have the teacher to have something to defend either themselves or or all the students there. In that case, I totally understand why they thought of that idea. Now, I also definitely do think that they should do a background check on the
Yeah.
teacher.
Well,
And
well, part of me is afraid, I guess, or thinking, what happens when the students, either high school level or even will like elementary school level, picks up that gun? That's nothing about it.
which
That
is why that I think that that the teacher should do their best to make sure that it's you know like that it's not within trying to think of the words
in reach.
yeah in reach of said student. And one of the arguments that I've heard against it is like that, oh well, what if one of the students acts up and then the teacher uses that gun against the kid to shut up? Okay, first of all, if they're going to do that, they are just a bad teacher. If they have to resort to threatening them with a weapon, and the teacher definitely should get fired if they're going to do that. And it goes back to what I said. That's why you do a background check on them. So I personally don't have an issue with them wanting to arm a teacher. Now, granted, it will depend on the teacher. So yeah, I know that might be a controversial opinion to have, but
Yeah, and probably the teacher and maybe the area they live in.
yeah, like say if that area has a long history like of shootings, then I can see that that might be a little bit more possible, like that they might arm the teacher. One other idea that I've heard, it's like that they want to build like a little shelter inside of like a classroom, and like that is bulletproof. I I personally think that's a good idea, but one of the downsides is like that, will that shelter like be big enough, to fit every single student in there? And not only that, but will it be able to fit, every single, not just every student, but the teacher also? Another idea that I've heard of is like to make like the classroom door and window bulletproof. I I'm not against that. I mean, they would have to get the finances, to get that in the first place. But I think something like that definitely would be worth investing into because it can save lives.
Now, uh, Mark reminds me of a point other people make. We have shootings because there's no prayer in school. Like, prayer isn't allowed in school anymore.
Okay, like I said, correlation doesn't equal causation. Again, maybe they're just bad people, Mark.
Yeah,
Have you ever stopped to think about that? Maybe they're
and
just bad people.
and I hate that remark because technically prayer is allowed in school. You can pray if you want to. I did in the
Yeah,
'90s.
yeah,
It just
exactly. You can pray all you want in school.
just the teacher can't lead it.
Exactly. That's the point. Nobody is telling you, Mark. Nobody is telling you that you can't pray in school. It's one of the amendments of freedom of religion. You can practice whatever religion you want as much as you want. But it's just the thing is, the teacher is not allowed, to say to lead a prayer in said school.
Because spoiler alert, a lot of kids aren't the same religion.
Yeah, there are kids who are Buddhists, there are kids who are atheists, there are kids who are Christian.
And
Uh,
Christian and this Christian, there's like Lutherans, Baptists,
Catholics,
Catholics, Orthodox,
young Earth
Methodists.
creationists, theistic evolutionists, old Earth creationists.
Yeah, and different branches have different things.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Mark, you really need to stop and think. It's because they're bad people. And from my research, evolution has nothing to do with the Columbine shooting. The reason why the shooters did it, from my understanding, is because they were bullied, and it's also because of the fact that they picked 420 because that was Adolf Hitler's birthday. And people also tried like to blame Marilyn Manson and Doom. I am so tired of that argument. Every time when one of these shootings happen, they always have to blame a violent movie or a violent video game. That's been debunked so many times.
Yeah, like I said, it's a bullying problem. Like
Exactly.
when I was bullied in school, I felt a deep hatred for those people too that were bullying
I did
me.
too.
And I was like, but I stopped myself from, I stopped myself. I transferred to another school so I could be away from them and calm down.
Yep, and I know how I feel because all the people who bullied me, I wanted to punch them in their face, but the reason why I didn't do it is because I didn't want to get in trouble afterwards. So they should consider themselves lucky.
Yeah. But like, it happens, like I don't know why that Texas kid did, but like they said, as soon as he turned 18, he went, he could buy a gun and win it. And I don't know why he decided to go to elementary school, but he did.
And yeah, and bullying is a huge issue. And now look, I understand that not every kid who gets bullied automatically is going to become a bloodthirsty killer. I understand that. But, it could definitely be a factor, though, which is why that I think schools need to take bullying a lot more seriously. Because not only can bullying lead to, school shootings, they also can lead to suicides, which is really sad. Which I actually heard that there was some kid who committed suicide at some school who got bullied, and then afterwards the teachers, not the teachers, the parents of said kid tried to sue the school, and I can completely understand why that they would want to sue them. Do you have two accounts? Fan, Delia?
What?
I see that in the comments. There's two Vandalia 1998s.
Yeah, one's on Facebook and one's on YouTube.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
But yeah, I posted the link to I found on Wikipedia at least of the Brady bill. The guy that made it, he was the guy that was shot instead of Reagan in the 80s. Reagan was assassinated, and he's the one that made that law.
So, out of curiosity, what are your thoughts on the controversy about how people blame these shootings for how they blame them on violent video games and movies?
Oh, I disagree. Like, because that happened.
Bullshit.
If there was like, I don't know, there was violent movies and games a long time ago too, and no,
long before these shootings ever happened.
Like I remember one joke one off topic, but I remember this one joke someone on YouTube said, this cartoon person, it says talking about blaming people video games like this. It says people who grew up in the 80s and 90s aren't going in the sewers and stomping on turtles.
But yeah, I mean, by that same logic, you can say that the reason why some people hate Christmas is because of Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I mean, by that same logic. I mean, it's absurd. I mean, it's an inanimate object, and the only reason why it has relevance is because we made it that way. It's not the movie, it's not the video game, it's the person either playing it or the person watching it. So yeah, I really wish that argument would just go away.
As a personal question, have you had any either shootings in your area or somebody that you're related to was involved in one?
So
on a more personal level,
right after Sandy Hook, just not long after I graduated high school, I remember there was this kid who was autistic who got mad at one of the teachers, and he wasn't thinking it through. He said this out of complete anger to one of the teachers there. He said, "Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna shoot up your school." That was the worst thing to say at the worst possible time. And because he's autistic, he didn't think it through. And then after that, a SWAT team was at my high school for the entire day. And that kid then got suspended. And yeah, so even though that he never did, shoot up the school, but yeah, I mean, he did not think that through at all. And so, as far as I know, that's the closest that's ever happened to a shooting. My area, there definitely have been a crap ton of bomb threats, but a bomb never went off. And there have been some kids who have brought brass knuckles to some of the schools that I went to. There was a kid who brought a gun to school once. I mean, it was just a pellet gun, but it never shot anybody. So as far as I know, that's all that all that's happened. And and how about you?
No, nothing in my area. Well, well, there was one thing that talked about the shooting in Chattanooga, Tennessee recently. My niece and brother and nephew-in-law just recently left there like a year ago. So this was in their neighborhood. Like this, if they lived that, this would have been in the neighborhood.
Wow. Wow, that's, I mean, now that I think about it, okay, so there's never been some school shootings at any of the schools in my area, but there has been shootings at like bars and at like some people's houses. But yeah, that's as far as I know. So yeah, now that I think about it, there's been those kind of shootings. But yeah, to play devil's advocate, you know, I'm not saying that I'm anti-gun by saying this, but because of all the gun violence, I can definitely see why that some people would want to take away guns, to end that. But at the same time, though, going back to what you said, because of there is the black market, people can just buy guns off of there, So, and even on top of that, people can just kill each other with something else, like hammers. And heck, you even can use a fork. You even can use a pen. You even can use your own belt, just to choke somebody. So, maybe the issue is not the gun, it's just the people with guns. Hey, Beethoven. Uninvent guns. Problem solved. But yeah, and to
And
say that guns kill people is just like saying that spoons make people fat.
And I guess the gun has to be invented eventually because, like say, not just for war is obvious, but like for hunting and stuff, some people use guns for hunting.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And so you can only imagine all the people who like to do that as a hobby, having their guns taken away. They're, I mean, they're going to be pissed. And, and even though hunting really isn't my thing, which is ironic, it's because I have a beagle and beagles like are used for hunting. But, hunting's never really been my thing. But, I can totally understand that, that guns. But sorry, I misspoke. I can totally understand that there's people who like to hunt.
Yeah.
Or not up to you.
Yeah, you said. Yeah, I kind of grew up with guns. Not really. My dad had a rifle or BB gun. I forget what it was in the closet, and he helped me use it sometimes in the backyard. Not really. So I have some. Not really that much, but I used a BB gun, and that's not really a gun or not, but I used one as a kid.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't finally even touch a real gun. Now, even though that I didn't shoot it, but I just touched it. I didn't finally touch a gun until a year ago now. I mean, that's how strict. I mean, I remember one of my friends bought me, something just to defend myself with. I remember that he bought me a pistol, as like a birthday gift. And then afterwards, my parents said, "Eric, we don't want you to have that. I don't like guns, but I hate my government." But yeah, one of the things I hate about the government is how they have that bullshit, rule about people on disability that they can only make so and so amount of money, work so and so amount of hours. And yeah, it's bullshit. This is a very sensitive topic for me. I can say that I've never held a real weapon before, so I don't have much interest in doing so. But yeah, You don't have to touch or have a weapon, but but you know, I say that it might come in handy if something were to happen, if somebody were to try to break in. But yet, you really can use anything as a weapon. Going back to what I said, you even can use a belt, just to choke somebody. You even can use a fork. So yeah, so heck, I can even use my bed sheets just so that I can strangle.
Or suffocate them over
Yeah,
their head.
suffocate them. And heck, I can even use my pillow for that too.
You, yeah, I think maybe if you were being attacked, I think your dog would start fitting you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might look tame, but if this owner's under attack, it's like don't touch
Oh,
my.
definitely, yeah. But yeah, even though Simba's a very, very friendly dog, but I can guarantee you that if somebody were to try to attack me, Simba would be on them. He's such a good boy. He's so spoiled rotten. I can play Star Trek and assist a born a burglar to death. Isn't that the one with Patrick Stewart?
Yeah, I think it was the last of the TNG movies.
Yeah, that I think was the last one before they rebooted it, like with Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen Nemesis, but I've heard a lot of bad things about it.
No.
Probably
It would bore people to death. The first movie, the very first Star Trek movie.
Oh yeah, I've heard that one. That is one of the rare circumstances where the sequels are better than the original.
Yeah, I heard a rumor about that movie that the cast itself fell asleep in the viewing.
That speaks volumes when it's the cast.
Yeah. Yeah, but Snick, we talked about this earlier, but I doubt you playing the FSP game made you want to go shoot something up.
Oh yeah, so this reminds me. There was some controversy about this because a few years ago somebody made like a video game where like you are the shooter from like one of these shootings. I believe they did that for Columbine. There was a video game like where you played as the shooter from the Columbine shooting.
Why?
There was a lot of backlash about that, and I think that's really insensitive. I totally am all for freedom of speech, but that's just pushing it. That's just being an asshole.
I know I guess it's not similar, but I guess it's like you ever played Civilizations and stuff?
I haven't had time for video games, so probably not.
What's on the thing? It's be like play Civilizations and picking and one of the options is the Hitler character.
Yeah, and when somebody even made a video game about that, like where you're one of the passengers dying on the Titanic. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Super Columbine Massacre RPG. Oh man, I'm gonna say this straight up. Whoever made that game is an asshole. No and if buts or maybes about it. No doing mental gymnastics about it. They are an asshole for making that game because they made a complete mockery out of all the innocent lives who died on that day. That's a real event. No, real people died. And that's just one big spit in the face on people's tombstones. Come on, have some respect.
Also, back to what I talked about close and personal things, I just remembered that on August 4th, 2019, one city down in Dayton, Ohio, there was like some guy saw 17 people at a bar in the Oregon district near where I live. And it was like about 4 years ago now, or 3 years ago now, and it's like I
Yeah,
said,
I completely agree with you. And this is
oh
coming from somebody who who's watched some pretty violent horror films. I mean, I've seen all the Saw movies and whatnot. I have no problem with violent video games or movies, but that that's just pushing it. And anybody who wants to play that game, and the person who made that game are psychos.
yeah, I nothing wrong with some games like I remember Snick when we used to hang out more. I forget which I think it was Grand Theft Auto or something, or maybe it was something like that. But he used to go. We used to I put game online with him, and he used to go and shoot a hot dog vendor over and over, probably the hot dog vendor over and over again.
Yeah.
I think he called him Burger Man or something like that. But he did everything to this guy, and then reset it the day and did it again.
Yeah, I remember one of the cheat codes like that I put in for Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I like was for your character to have like a dildo as a weapon. Oh man, that was so funny. That was so funny.
Yeah,
Oh, God,
I wonder how many people in those games actually did the objectives, not or they say.
All right, Ben said on Facebook can't join, but that was fun. But yeah, man. Yeah, thank you for stopping by. But yeah, so what do you think needs to happen in order to prevent these shootings from happening again?
Well,
Because something needs to be done.
like I say, well, one, as much as we can, make it harder for certain people to get the weapons.
Yes, definitely.
And like I say that's 100% preventable because people can always steal them if they want to. If people want the gun, they can get them. So, but it'd be like a little bit of a blockage.
Oh, hi there.
I had to mention Burger Man. Okay. Yeah, I had. Yeah, sorry to cut in, but yeah, I had to. I feel like I have to explain that crap. So basically, that started because of me. Because GTA 4 is like probably one of my top open world games, and basically, think the Cabbage Merchant from Avatar.
I haven't played Grand Theft Auto 4 since 2008, so it's been a long time ever since I played that game.
I would say I think GTA 5 is overrated, and I think the GTA 3 era games are dated. Like 4 is like the one that's held up for me weirdly.
Yeah, so. I haven't ever played 5. The one that I played the most definitely was Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Yeah, San Andreas is popular, so.
We talked about
earlier, but why?
But Snick, after did playing that game make you want to go out in real life and do that?
No.
Same thing with me. It's because of the fact that I'm intelligent enough to understand that if I were to do that in real life, there will be consequences, and it's just entertainment. I mean, by that same logic, after I watch Jurassic Park, I'm gonna want to go run around and be a velociraptor and then go bite people like a velociraptor.
I think I got a great example. One anime I've started watching recently is Black Lagoon. It is incredibly violent, lots of cursing, and but the way it's presented is meant to make it look awesome. And I mean, they don't shy away from like all the dark themes because it is a very dark anime as much as they try to make it look stylish. But I mean, it is great anime, but does watching it make you want to go out and imitate what the crew of the Black Lagoon pirate ship does? Not exactly, huh?
No. I mean, I mean, there's some like maybe some kids use their imagination and pretend, but they don't actually beat people up. Like I used to pretend that I was He-Man and stuff in the '80s and GI Joe, but I didn't go doing whatever. What about you two? Did you ever pretend to be someone violent or not violent as a kid?
Too many stories to count.
Yeah, like I said, there's a fine line between pretending and acting and acting it out in real life. Not something like you know what I mean.
And just the whole thing's tragic. Like,
yeah, and I say that if someone's gonna go out and Amanda, kill somebody, they obviously have poor morals. And
sorry to interrupt. I feel like another big part of it that I've noticed is that lots of times they just want the attention.
That too.
Like they want people to remember them, and that this is their sick way of doing it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that why the Virginia Tech guy, that Chinese guy, like who made all those, like he made all those really freaky plays and he recorded those really freaky videos and he said, "Oh, I want people to remember me," and then they
Columbine people did it too.
I remember that. I think my mom was in the hospital then. Someone was in the hospital in my family. I remember that it was playing on the TVs in the hospital. The Virginia Tech. I remember that.
Yep, I remember Virginia Tech happened when I was in the 7th grade, and from what I've heard, I heard that guy got rejected by like a lot of girls at his school, and that was one of the reasons why he was wanting revenge. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, it's like, buddy, if you're getting rejected by all these girls, wouldn't it be a lot more reasonable to just work on your social skills rather than killing people?
This reminds me of this. This is so weird because earlier today I was watching videos about someone by the name of Elliot Rodger. Anyone hear of him?
It sounds familiar, but
it doesn't ring a bell to me.
Elliot Rodger got the name King of the Incels, like various different names. Basically, he was a socially awkward guy who desperately wanted a girlfriend, except he had no social skills. And whenever he did display social skills, it was often of the negative variety. Like once he attended this party that I might get some stuff wrong. Once he attended a party that was like where girls from like a sorority would frequently go to, he apparently would sit on the stone ledge at a beach, and he just sat there, waited for somebody to approach him. And then when he saw girls going up to other guys, and they were hitting it up, having conversations, his response was to try and push them off the ledge.
Okay, so was he maybe autistic? Is because people with autism have a harder time socializing. So.
I don't think he was autistic, but apparently he had like massive depression, like other mental health issues. And that incident ended with him getting pushed off the ledge and he broke his leg. And finally, when he was pushed over the edge, and the way he went about this was super pathetic too. He got into his dad's car and he decided he was going to take weapons. He was going to shoot at the people that he felt wronged him. And he was also going to run people over with the car. Except he didn't want to his plan to take the car didn't go as planned because I guess he didn't want his dad to know, and his dad was home. He goes to the sorority house, and his plan was to knock on the door and just wait for somebody to let him in. And nobody let him in. So he decided to go after... Well, he killed his roommates, and he went after random people on the street, and eventually the cops got him, and then he killed himself. But was just absolutely pathetic.
And when did this happen?
I think about 10 years ago. About.
Yeah, I never heard about this, but unfortunately, I can't say I'm not surprised it happened because stuff like that does happen.
Yeah, like
Money
that's
was
just
supposed to
that's
say
just
that.
what this reminded me of, like mentioning like wanting relationships and all that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he might be autistic if he had that much of a hard time socializing.
Two things real fast. Back to Eric's question. Besides the thing, I also the school thing, I would try to prevent strangers from coming into the school. Like if you see a 20-year-old near the doors of a elementary school that's not related to any of the kids,
That'd be weird.
yeah, it's like a little bit
Like, what are you
more
doing,
security
buddy?
and the 2 or 3 interests, like how like a 20-year-old or 18-year-old got in the school in the first place is beyond me. And also there's also a worry about the other side of it too. When people going, I think some can also credit, but you used to go overboard. Because I remember one time, I forget what I think it was Snick saying that a kid drew a picture of a gun and he got suspended for drawing a picture of a gun or a cutout. I think that was you.
Well, from what little I remember of that story, this was around the time the Sandy Hook shooting happened. Basically, what happened was, from what I understand, one kid took a pair of scissors and cut a piece of paper, and I guess he cut it wrong, so he threw it in the garbage. One kid thought this piece of paper he threw out vaguely looked like a weapon and told on him to the teacher, and the teacher took it seriously. He got suspended.
Yeah,
just because of a assumption.
That reminds me, back my senior year of high school, in my math class, there was this guy named Tyler. He was arguing with the math teacher, and the argument got so bad, he got up, he was yelling at the teacher, he then threw the table at the teacher, and then he yelled out loud, "I'm done with this fucking school," and everybody in the class, including mine, our jaws dropped. We were speechless by what we saw. And afterwards, that kid then went to the track field and just passed out. That scared us because we were starting to think, okay, you better not like start up a shooting or anything like that.
I'm remembering one case where somebody made a joke about this and they got their life ruined for it. I mean, it was pretty.
What did they joke about?
I'm not sure if anyone remembers this. Basically, this was, again, around the time Sandy Hook happened. Somebody was playing a game, like some high school kid was playing a game online, and I guess he was like dominating or something, and somebody made an offhanded comment saying, oh, you're making a real killing, aren't you? And then he made a stupid joke saying, oh, I haven't made a real, like, he's like, oh, no, I'm not done yet. I'm going to go, I don't even know if I want to say this because it's just that messed up. Basically, he makes a stupid joke about how he's going to go to a school and shoot it up before saying JK, JK. Somebody...
You don't joke about that.
You don't.
People take that shit seriously. It
goes
back to what I said. I don't know if you heard me. Right after Sandy Hook happened, there was this kid who was autistic who got mad at a teacher, and then he said it out of frustration, even though he didn't mean it. He said, yeah, I'm going to shoot up your school. And then that kid then got suspended. And then after that, a SWAT team and then was at that school at my old high school for the entire day. It's like, you don't say shit like that. And people want to argue, oh, it's freedom of speech. Freedom of speech even has its limits.
Yeah.
Because you can get arrested for saying some things. And on top
And
of that,
that's what happened to this guy. That's what happened to this kid. Like somebody
right.
saw it online. He got arrested. I mean, granted, the case got dragged out for like nearly a decade, even when it became obvious he wasn't actually going to do anything. But still, you can get arrested for it.
Yeah, you don't. And on top of that, not only legally are there some things you don't say, even morally and even socially, there are things you do not say. Like, say if your girlfriend asks you, hey, do I look fat in this dress? If you tell her yes, she's going to be pissed and then we'll call you an asshole for it. And, say if I just came into work and I told my boss, hey, fuck you, I'm probably going to get fired for it. And, and if I just go around being rude to people all the time, calling them insults, I can probably guarantee you that I'm not going to have any friends. So yeah, freedom of speech has its limits.
So
now, am I all for you stating your opinion? Say, for example, I don't like Justin Bieber. Fine. But, but afterwards, if you say, oh, well, because you don't like Justin Bieber, I'm going to shoot you, then no, that's not okay. It reminds me about 10 years ago, there was a guy named Eric Douglas on YouTube.
Oh, I know who that is.
Yeah, the Declaration of War against Justin Bieber haters.
Yeah, where he threatens to dox people who don't like Justin Bieber.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude. And he was saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to find out who you are, and I'm going to give out your personal information. I'm like, okay, you realize that's illegal, right? And then afterwards, he then made some bullshit video saying, oh, well, I did all that to start an acting career. By threatening people? You're a fucking idiot.
Back to the freedom of speech thing real fast. It's like people saying that they hate gay people. That's fine and all, but saying you hate gay people and preventing them from doing stuff is
like say to vote or to work. Yeah, they have laws about that, and that will fall under discrimination. You can't just not hire somebody simply because that they're gay. They can get in trouble for that. Just like how you can't fire somebody simply because they practice Christianity, and you can't fire somebody simply because they have a disability. You can't do that.
So Snick, we talked about our local areas happening. Was there anybody local for you or personal that was involved in a gun tragedy or anything?
I live in the same geographical region where Sandy Hook happened. So there's that. I can't think of any other major incidents. I mean, there probably was, and I'm not aware of it, but I mean, that's the big one.
Like I said before, mine was recently. It was Dayton, Ohio, about 4 years ago. 4 people, 9 people shot, 17 wounded, and the cops killed them right afterwards. Like probably about an hour from where I live. So yeah.
All right, so we've been going on for about an hour, and I do have to work early tomorrow morning, so I think I'm gonna.
Real fast before you go, you have an opinion on the people on the officers in the Texas thing? That 2 people they were saying slow, some people that they were fine.
So what exactly is the question again? Sorry.
The Texas, why your opinion on why it took the Texas police so long to get into school, stop the shooter?
I'm gonna answer it as best of my knowledge. Maybe because there was a traffic jam. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I seriously hope that they weren't slacking on their job, which kind of reminds me of Columbine. By the fact that some cops just stood around and just allowed it all to happen, which is bullshit. They're cops. They should be doing their jobs, and unfortunately, bad cops like that, unfortunately, give people like my dad a bad name. It's because there actually are good cops out there. There actually are cops like who genuinely are trying to save people's lives.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I seriously hope that they weren't slacking on their job. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. And so now that you're off the summer break, do you have any plans for your channel that you
Yeah,
on either of your channels that
so for Eric the Tyrannoceratops, I have it planned that I'm going to do a debunk video about how vaccines cause autism. Out of all the pseudoscientists out there, that one's definitely one of the most deadly ones out there. So yeah, I definitely want to expose that and show how the science backs it up. Vaccines do not cause autism. Even if they did cause autism, it's better for your kid to be autistic than to have your kid be dead. So there's that. And on Eric Vierthaler 92, I currently am filming the sequel to Dinosaur Deniers, the movie. And the sequel is about how the reason why fast food restaurants screw up your order is because there's a huge worldwide conspiracy going on about why fast food restaurants screw up your order. So yeah, that's what I got planned.
so more of like a paranoid movie thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And me and Nathan Thompson, the infamous flat earther, him and I got into an argument today about how he was trying to argue with me about how dinosaurs didn't exist. So I'm thinking about challenging him to a debate on Eric the Tyrannoceratops. And oh man, Nathan Thompson, he's...
So the Earth is flat and the dinosaurs.
Yeah, and just all the arguments he was giving me was just bad argument after bad argument. And I pretty much had to explain to him. I had to explain to him for a whole hour the concept of a replica. But all that he kept doing was just repeating his same debunked argument over and over and over again.
The fact that since it's not a real bone, they're not real.
Yep, he pretty much was repeating himself over and over again. And I was trying to pinpoint him. I'm like, okay, answer either A or B. Do you understand the concept of a replica? Yes or no? And then I even said, okay, Nathan, by your same logic, the replica of the Grand Staircase on the Titanic that they have in the Titanic Museum in Las Vegas, then by your logic, the Grand Staircase of the Titanic never existed. Although that we can prove that without a doubt that the Grand Staircase from the Titanic did exist. And he was saying, oh yeah, well, I think critically because I believe the flat earth. I'm like, okay, Nathan Thompson, that's where I'm going to stop you, because that's coming from the same guy. And there is a video of you doing this on YouTube. So this is proof. Coming from the same guy who's reading a book about the flat earth while driving a car on the highway. So you really want to tell me that you're the one who thinks critically?
And you know why they have replicas? Because the bones or rocks, that they're now fossils, are kind of like if they move it too much, they could get damaged more than
they'll break in. Exactly. That's why they have replicas, and on top of that, they also have them for educational purposes. Like heck, I have a replica of Archaeopteryx right there. Man, arguing with him was like playing chess with a pigeon. No matter how good you are at playing chess, they're gonna crap on the board and strut around like as if they won.
Well, if say you ever need a place after show, you can always come here.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, thank you all for having.
Thanks for being here, Snick. Thanks for being here. As I always say, never stop learning and enjoy the randomness.
Tell that to Nathan Thompson. Never stop learning.
Bye.
Later.